Hey everyone, welcome to the latest edition of the IRC race review. Today we have a very special guest with us, but before we get into that, we also have our regulars, Baba.G and BlackSheep, with us on the podcast. In addition, we also have my very close friend, um, yashrajgarhia. He's one of my closest friends from school and has joined our group of F1 aficionados. So welcome everyone.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Adil. Thanks, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Right. So where do we get started? I think we all know where to get started. I think it's the first race that I have seen in my life with three different starts. What do you guys think? What are your key takeaways from the race? Let's start with you, Yash.
I mean, just the sheer confusion of everything and not knowing what's going to happen when. The second restart like really got me. Like I was really getting into the zone of like, okay, we're finally going to go racing. But I think it was about an hour in, and we just got in a couple of corners through officially through to the entire race. Yeah, that was my big like highlight moment, at least. Like that second restart or that second crash rather was like that just took me completely by surprise. So that's definitely the highlight for me.
Wait, there were way too many crashes
Yeah.
for me to keep track of.
Given that it was,
Go ahead, Baba.
everyone. Yeah. Given the track, we are expecting quite a boring race further than the T1, but we all got surprised, I guess, from the events. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but before we move on, Yash, something you mentioned was the second crash. I think there were too many crashes for me to figure out exactly which one you're talking about. I assume you meant on the main straight at the safety car restart.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one.
Okay. Black Sheep, what about you? What are your key takeaways from the race?
Okay, so for me, I think one thing I'm just going to mention is I love the fact that it was great to see a track that does not have massive runoff areas. It's just track, gravel, and grass. And that was quite refreshing to see. You know, that's very old school. And I'd like to see more tracks like that. So I just want to mention that firstly. And secondly, I think the FIA needs to have a look at some of its rules.
Yeah, I think you were quite
That's my
vocal
two
after the
takeaways.
race. You were quite vocal after the race about. I mean, let's go ahead and get the safety car conversation out of the way because I think that's something which probably
Yeah.
frontlines the discussions. Uh, what what
Mhm.
you had some very strong views about the FIA's part in the incident itself. Care to elaborate?
Yeah, I think in 2018 or 2019 when they changed the rule to the restart being allowed after the start finish line, as in the control line is the second control line before, and drivers until the second control line, which is the start finish line, can keep going slow before picking speed up. And a lot of these circuits now have massive long corners. I was watching it live with some of our IRC guys, and I think I made the comment, imagine if this was Baku, and Bottas had literally crawled all the way across the 3 kilometer straight up until the start finish line and picked up the speed 100 meters before the first corner. It would have been carnage. And I do think that what the FIA needs to do is maybe for every individual circuit, maybe have its own control line, which is safe for that track.
I couldn't agree with you more.
True, that's very well said. Because then Abu Dhabi, I think that they got the rule about the second control line because of Abu Dhabi. Because earlier so the safety car goes into the pits way earlier before the last corner, so it's easy to overtake right up until the start finish straight. So I think they amended the rule because of that. But I agree with you that they need to find the specific control line for each circuit where it fits.
Yeah, definitely. But if moving FIA aside, who do you think actually frontlined the carnage at the first safety car restart? Let's start with you,
I'm
Baba G.
guessing there's like multiple. I guess there's multiple reports. So basically, initial incident was on the basis of Russell and I guess someone else, I think it was Ocon, who had still a certain gap towards the cars ahead of them. It was right at that perfect moment where they were crossing the pits and they still had a gap towards the cars in front. So they probably just sped up to catch up to them, and that gave a go signal to everyone behind to push ahead. And so Magnussen was watching this right in front of him, and he realized that they're just closing a delta, so he didn't actually accelerate. But the guys behind, they just went full throttle, starting with Latifi, and Latifi in turn gave Giovinazzi the go-ahead to go behind him. So Latifi realizes that the race has not started yet. He takes the wide line and stops, but Giovinazzi has nowhere to go. So it's just a Constantino effect, and everyone just cusses into each other. So you can put the blame partly on George Russell and Ocon to not maintain their gap, or you can put it on Latifi also too, who just got too eager to start racing.
It also goes back to the. I think I'm just sorry, Adil. It goes back to I think some of the chatter that I was hearing that hey, the lights were green. I think that's the signal that everyone took, and then going back to that same conversation about control lines. I think that's the major confusion that everybody had in their heads. That okay, I'm seeing green, so that means like go. So I think that's where everything kind of just fell apart.
True.
Yeah.
So you can't really personally blame any one person for this. So yeah, you can say it. Yeah, you can always blame Magnussen for everything, but then you can't do that all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm
I
surprised you
think
didn't blame
Magnussen
Albon
was
for this.
okay. He was
Oh yeah, why not? Let's just go at it. Albon has to thank all his lucky Thailand stars for those
We'll
three
get to
restarts he
Albon. We'll
got
get to
to
Albon
finally
later.
get a podium.
No, Baba, I don't think you should be talking about Albon right now, given all of our previous conversations.
Okay,
But I'm
okay,
surprised you didn't blame him for the safety car restart.
okay.
I'm just joking,
I
obviously.
should actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So moving on, I think we should probably move a little towards the red flags in the multiple. We had 3 race starts yesterday, if I'm not wrong. Um, Bottas did very well on one, okay on the second, but completely botched the third. Um, is it becoming more and more clear that Mercedes are right to support Hamilton in their tactical decisions, or should they be trying to give Bottas the edge to kind of help his case, help his fight? Let's start with Raju. Yash, sorry. What do you think?
I mean, yesterday was a very equal fight. Again, the one thing that really flashes in front of me when you ask me that question is either one like the other driver wanting to undercut the other. So Bottas's radio back to the pits was that okay, give me the tires that Hamilton's not on, and then I think Hamilton went and did the exact opposite. So I think they're trying to make it a race of unequals. There is, I think, but very, very little to differentiate the two. Like again, it's a game of thousands of seconds. I think that's what defines or differentiates both of them. I really don't think that their strategies are geared to one person, but I think Hamilton's just that little bit better, and that little bit is what matters at the end of the day.
Yes, it is a game of inches.
Well put.
Yep. I think without much ado,
Yes.
let's jump straight into the setup, or what we call the grid order, the final grid order, and maybe you can go through each and every driver's race. It'll be slightly shorter today because we had half the grid DNF. So I think that kind of helps us speed things along. Dead last week's race winner, Pierre Gasly. He was coming off the best weekend of his life, the redemption story, the golden boy, and come turn two, they were 3 wide. There was Gasly, Raikkonen, and Magnussen, who were, I think, side by side. What
No,
exactly?
Grosjean.
Grosjean, sorry.
Grosjean.
What exactly happened there, Black Sheep?
Yeah.
Why don't you walk us through that incident?
Well, I think you answered your own question there. There were 3 wide going into that corner. I think into turn 3. So it's this uphill approach into turn 3, and it's quite a sharp corner. It's essentially a chicane, isn't it? It's the first chicane on the track,
Yeah.
and you just can't go be wide. It's like Russia from last year, where Giovinazzi just got squeezed by Ricardo and Grosjean, I think, again, who's on the outside. Grosjean appears to always be on the outside of these incidents. Just noticed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, you can't really expect anything
If
out
you
of
can
that.
bring in more detail to this, so in people would try to blame Kimi for this, but yeah, Kimi couldn't make the corner from the inside, so he had to get some space for himself. That in turn had a domino effect, and Gasly got squeezed in between.
Yeah.
So
Raju,
Gasly didn't
sorry.
particularly have a good weekend.
Hmm.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Yash.
So Gasly didn't have a particular good weekend.
Go ahead, Baba.G. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about Gasly before we move ahead. He didn't have a good performance in qualifying itself. He got knocked out in Q1 itself. So he tried to put on a softer tire and be competitive of the grid. So that probably also affected in the situation there.
Yeah.
Yes, we can move on to yes. I'm sorry.
No, totally fine. It's all in good uh conversation. Yash, so if you had to narrow the blame on a particular driver, do you think
Mhm.
it was more a consequence of like Black Sheep said, being three wide and no drivers were 100% to blame, or do you sort of agree with Baba.G that Raikkonen did go a little too deep into the corner and was probably the front runner and caused a Constantina effect on the rest of the cars?
I mean, I take a little bit of both, honestly. Yes, Raikkonen did cause it, and we can't really take that away. Like, he was the first domino to fall, and then everybody fell. But we also need to ask, like, what else could he have done? And I don't think there was much more that he could have done apart from just stop. And I don't think you race to stop; you race to keep on going. So I really don't think I can put the blame on Raikkonen or find any fault with it. But he was definitely the cause of it to begin with. But again, yeah, it's a racing incident in my book, and that's what even the steward sort of came to towards the end as well. I don't think that it's fair to blame a man who's just looking to win a race, or rather, finish in the points in this case.
Well, he certainly accomplished that, finishing in the points. Probably the biggest loser from
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
probably the biggest loser from that incident though was the number 33, the infamous slash famous, however you put him, Max Verstappen. He had a terrible start. I think there was an engine issue onto the grid itself. Red Bull knew that he would be lacking power. I don't think they expected the issue to be that severe, but he just dropped. He had a decent start, a good getaway, and then just dropped down to I think eighth or ninth position by turn one. He just had absolutely no power on the grid, so he was caught in that incident as well. He did finish second last as the standings put him, but where do you think he could have finished if he managed to survive that one incident? Because it's clear his engine wasn't performing. Do you think he would have finished the race at all? Um, Baba, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I don't. They he had an amazing start. That's how we know. I was kind of expecting the way Hamilton had a poor start. I was really expecting him to get into turn one, and that would have sealed the race for a good measure. But by the likes of how his engine failed, I don't think he would have gone much further in lap one or two. They would have retired the car. So I guess he wouldn't have done much in this race. And as Red Bull confirmed later, the engine issues are much more severe than they expected. It's not something minor like they usually have.
Exactly, because
So
I
yeah,
was just going to
that's
say that
probably
Honda.
1 or 2 laps he could have gone through.
Yeah, I was just going to say Honda are infamous for having minor niggling issues on their engine, which they tend to fix midway through the race or in a few laps. But this certainly was more severe. So it's a shame, but I think his race was cursed from the start. Pity we didn't see a Max Verstappen show like a comeback in Brazil or something like that. Brazil 2016 or Austria 2019. That would have been a great drive. Um, moving on to
Yeah,
Carlos
this would
Scott.
have been an amazing race. I just wanted to add that this would have been an amazing race because Hamilton had a poor getaway, and if he didn't have a carnage or something, this race would still have been very exciting. It would be Bottas, Verstappen, and Hamilton fighting along, and we would have had the fight up front we were looking for all season. So yeah,
Yeah, I
please
think
move on.
The Red Bull was
And
certainly
and if Verstappen even did survive, knowing that, and in hindsight, we have 3 starts to a race, and considering that his Honda engine clearly wasn't firing to a get go for a good start right off the line, I think that might have been another factor we could have seen like playing in more and more as we got deeper into the race.
Yeah, well said. I agree with you totally, Yash. That's also a factor. This engine is just not in the place right now. Hopefully, they can fix it for Imola.
Max would have been hoping for even a Ferrari engine yesterday. Maybe, I don't know.
Hmm.
Probably not.
You would hope for any
Okay.
engine or a car or wheels. I think he could, if you gave him the option, he would have gone out on a bike. To be honest, but
Yeah, that would have been fun to watch. The next
yeah.
sort of podium finisher for Monza who was affected was Carlos Sainz, and that was actually scary to watch. I think if you saw the safety car restart, he was basically mounted by, if I'm not wrong, it was a Williams or was it a Haas? Not completely sure,
No,
but
it was Alfa Romeo, I think. It was Giovinazzi, I guess. He landed straight into the rear of Giovinazzi.
ah, ah, yeah, that was scary. He hurt his wrist, but I believe he will be okay. Um, Pity to see his race end before it starts. Really, for all intents and purposes, and I think that summed up Giovinazzi's race in a nutshell as well. Kevin Magnussen was another was another casualty. I kind of miss what happened to him. I was focusing on Sainz and the other side of and Latifi, but I kind of miss Magnussen. BlackSheep, are you aware of exactly what happened to him on the line?
Yeah, I think he veered off by himself. I think he was trying to avoid people ahead of him because he was the only car that crashed. What to the right side, the right wall, isn't it? The pit wall, essentially. And then it came back on the track, went across, and then stopped at the other side. So I think he was trying to avoid Ocon or Latifi, one of them, and then kind of just turned to the right, just lost the car into the barriers.
I think you guys got it wrong here. Giovinazzi rear-ended Magnussen in full speed. So yeah,
No, I think
was...
Giovinazzi went into Latifi. Latifi was ahead of him.
No, he hit Magnussen first, and Latifi was towards the left of the grid, and then he hit Latifi too. So that's why you see the side pod damage on the right for Latifi, because he hits Magnussen in the left rear, and then he bounces off towards Latifi, who was stationary also, and Sainz goes in between like a sandwich between Giovinazzi, under Giovinazzi's car, completely. So Magnussen was sitting duck in the center of the straight, and he got rear-ended by Giovinazzi as he had nowhere to go.
Okay.
Right.
I think we can cover a lot of these drivers just essentially
Yeah, I think we just
part
covered
of the
it. Yeah.
incident. I think we can go up to P13 or 14.
Yeah, I think P13. I think Ocon is covered, Latifi's covered. Let's move on to Lance Stroll. He was really sitting pretty for this race. I think he would have had an easier chance holding off Alexander Albon given the straight line speed of that racing point. It's a very efficient car in a straight line. So he was also driving with updated aero parts, whereas Perez had an older edition of aero. So he was maximizing the potential of that car. Unfortunately, he lost it at one of the Arabiatas, if I'm not wrong. Is anyone
Yep.
aware of? Was it publicly announced what was the exact issue on the car? Because he said he had a puncture, but I think they came out with a statement that the tire pressures were okay right until impact. Baba, I think you had.
Yeah,
In
he
the
was
footage
kind of.
when we
Let
watch
me go ahead.
the cameras, you can see a bit of his tire sort of go away, fly up in the air, can't we? So I do think
Yeah,
the tire just gave way.
it was quite uncharacteristic also by the way he was giving the steering input. He wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. So can't really say for sure. But the Racing Point did come out by saying that the tire pressures got zero only when he hit the wall. So don't really know what to say right now because he was definitely being hard on the curbs, and as we know it, Mercedes pit wall was communicating to their drivers that to stay away from the curbs to save the tires. Also, Bottas had the same issue in his first stint where he complained of huge vibrations because of how he was driving. And we all know that Bottas has longer corners than Hamilton, so he probably ended up using more curbs, which in turn gave him the vibrations. So it's safe to assume that the curb riding probably was the demise of Lance Stroll, but we can't say for sure right now. And like Adil said, he was on for a really good race, and in that order itself, if he wouldn't have retired, probably we would have had Ricardo podium. So I know this is the retirement which hurt the most, I guess.
Yep. Yash, what do you have to say about Stroll? Do you think that um, do you think it was his fault, or do you think it was a consequence of the team not understanding the tires and not giving him the right information?
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think it's the team's fault, to be fair. I think it's just a factor of being in the wrong place at the wrong time again, which seems to be the theme for this entire race as a whole. I really don't know what's gone wrong. Like we still haven't been able to establish what the issue was. But yeah, I mean, I honestly I have not much to say about Stroll. I just overall feel really bad for him. Missed out on what could have been a very good consecutive podium finish for him, and again points in the bag for Racing Point also. So yeah, I think that's the overall fleeting emotion for this race, that everybody was just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Couldn't agree more. This certainly was a comedy of errors, if you want to call it that. But I think next on the order would be Romain Grosjean. Dead last. If somebody told him he'd be coming out in P12, I don't think he'd be particularly disappointed. But considering 12 drivers finished, again, not much to say. For my side, I think he managed to avoid the carnage, and I think at some points that is the most important thing you can do. Um, were there any particular highlights from his race? Let's start with you this time, Yash.
I mean, Grosjean definitely not. I mean, backmarker and has been there for a while. I did see some glimmers of hope when he was running in the points in the middle, but I honestly didn't have too many expectations from the Haas to begin with. I was honestly moving a little bit away from it. I was just counting the number of cars left on the grid. The only thing that was coming to mind was that infamous race back in, I think, 2006, where we had Michelin in the and Goodyear in the mix of things. Not Goodyear, if I'm not wrong. Michelin and another player. Again,
Bridgestone.
forgetting the
Bridgestone,
name.
yeah.
But that race finished. Yeah, so that race finished with I'd say, about how many? There were 6 people, I think, racing the
Yes.
entire. Yeah, so I was just counting the cars down and like, okay, will we get down to that number eventually? Because that's how fast this grid was deteriorating. That was the only thing. So I knew Grosjean would finish towards the back end of it, but I think P12 at the end of the day, if you asked him if he would take it in a normal race scenario, I think he would. So I don't think Grosjean from the rest of the pack should be too sad about that finish towards the end.
Yeah. Uh, wholeheartedly agreed. Any conflicting opinions on Grosjean's race?
Yes. Before we move on, Romain Grosjean is consistent, by the way. He has P12 2 times in a row now, so don't flame him, Stamps.
Yeah, he certainly is actually, for me this season, was the better of the two Haas drivers. Magnussen has done well at times, but I think
Easily.
Grosjean is easily
Yeah.
the better of the two Haas drivers this season.
We,
Yep.
we have a special place for Magnussen for his antics, but yeah.
Yeah, Magnussen won our hearts in Monza. Let's be honest, driver of the day. But unfortunately, it's a second
Yeah.
DNF. Didn't give us the same result we were hoping for, but at least it made the race a bit exciting. George Russell, though, I think talking about broken hearts, George
Oh,
Russell, 3 seconds off his
oh my
first
God.
F Formula One point. I was not. I wouldn't say I was cheering for him because it was either
Got it.
him or the Ferrari, or Kimi. But I'm definitely gonna say that I hoped that he would stamp his mark on Formula One very very soon. Open his bank of points, if you would say. Why
Yeah.
wasn't I think Russell was quicker than Vettel at the end, or was he not, Black Sheep?
I can answer that. No, he wasn't. He was falling away.
He was falling away.
He was quicker on the second restart or something,
Yeah.
but
It
he
was
was
quicker
not
on the
quicker towards
restart,
the
but
end.
as the laps piled up, he fell back.
And the
I
last
mean,
lap, I
certainly
think.
the Ferrari is not slower than the Williams.
Yeah, we have not reached those days yet. I agree, BlackSheep. But yeah,
Yeah.
he
It's
was
so
in DRS range, I think, last lap. But I think he did a mistake somewhere, so that gave that place away too. I think he ran wide right before the Arabiatas, which caused him to go to the 3 second delta, which we know that's the end of the race. But he was closer, I think, towards the penultimate lap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very reminiscent. I remember growing up watching F1 and like cheering, or rather having to cheer for a Ferrari versus a Williams. I didn't think I'd be cheering for a 10th place and 11th place, but yeah, how times have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really need more competitive cars on the grid because, like, the likes of Russell's, so many drivers are there which are capable of fighting for the win, but there's just not enough machinery, which is quite sad, to be honest.
I'd honestly, Baba.G, I'd disagree a little bit. Like yesterday, honestly, I thought it was more exciting in terms of overtakes, at least again, given the multiple restarts bunching the grid together. But there was a lot of action on multiple race positions that you wouldn't see. Like you'd park yourselves in like third or fourth place, and I think because there was so much dynamism on the grid because of these multiple restarts and tire strategies that everybody was on, trying the undercut, failing, and then trying again. It kept things exciting at least. So it was a good watch even for the mid markers for us to sort of go through the race with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The racing as a whole in F1 has been improving each and every year, but sadly the competition gap is just getting to. I was getting to basically my point was around George Russell. The man has almost 30 races now, and like he's not got a single point, and he's most definitely one of the most talented drivers on the grid as of now, easily.
Right.
So he does deserve a better machine soon. And I hope he can. I hope he can actually get a machine to challenge the likes of Hamilton and Vettel before they retire, because that would be much more sublime
Yeah.
than actually competing with Leclerc and Verstappen further down the future, which he's obviously going to do.
Which you will. Fair enough.
Yeah. So it's a shame
Let's
George
move
Russell.
on to the P1. P1.
Yeah, I think it's a shame for Russell, but we have to talk about, I think, Sebastian Vettel. Honestly, I'm done talking about him. He was half a second off in qualifying.
Dude, he's P1.
What?
1 point.
Oh my god.
P1.
Yeah,
I
1
think those are
point.
the points.
Yeah, I think
P1, Sebastian, 1 point.
I think if you like Grosjean,
He didn't get the memo. He got.
it's his fun fact. It's Sebastian Vettel's first 10th place finish in his career. He has never finished in 10th before. He's
Oh.
finished out of the points. He's finished ahead of 9th, but
Oh.
he has never finished in 10th position before. I think that just sums up his season as a whole when you have to celebrate a single point. And it also summed up this race. He really wasn't anywhere. The most excitement he had was against George Russell, which speaks volumes in itself. But yeah, I really feel Ferrari should not keep drivers on after they announce that they are leaving the team. Pay him off, pay the entire year off, but get an alternative driver who would actually fight for that seat. It just looks like a very disinterested battle right now, and I'm not. Earlier in the season, he had a different chassis to Leclerc. That's not the case anymore. He's been given all of the same equipment, and no other arguments to make, no other defense for him.
Mad cause bad.
Yash, what do you think about Vettel and his race and his season?
I mean, yes, I can sense it. The disinterest is definitely beginning to show. I don't feel like he has a lack of heart, though. To be honest, I feel he just feels a little hard done by Ferrari as a whole. I think last year these changing inclinations were very clear as Leclerc started to win and that first podium as well. I think you could sense these loyalties internally also moving in the other direction. I think Verstappen honestly set off the chain of these young drivers coming in and taking the helm of these bigger teams and showing that they have a mature head to sort of be in that very, very expensive and well performing machine. So I think that's the time that Vettel realized that it's time to move away. And honestly, I think this should have been the season that he looked at greener pastures. I honestly think that this season itself is an extension that he shouldn't have asked for. To be honest, if he did, last year should have been his last, and he should have seen the signs coming and just moved over to another team, maybe a McLaren. Racing Point though is a good fit for him for next Aston Martin at least. But yeah, I feel it's a year too much for Vettel in this current scenario.
Yeah. I think the Aston Martin announcement couldn't have come at a better time for Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, certainly looking. Otmar Zafnauer did say that all he needs is a hug and some love, and we are prepared to give that to him. So I hope Sebastian Vettel is happy, because when he is happy, he drives like a god. Yeah, talking about
I also like
yeah,
again just coming like sorry, just one quick point on Ferrari. I mean, just the chatter also that you hear with both drivers. In fact, not only just Vettel, give a sense that I don't know. There's a sense of unsurety on the pits as well when it comes to tire changes or strategies. They seem to be second guessing themselves as well. They don't really know where to operate. I think they're a team which thinks front row, or rather their DNA is front row, but having to deal with mid and back markers currently has been a little bit of an ego bruising scenario situation for them as well. So I don't think that their strategy is also currently matching what their car is doing. I think they're still planning for a Mercedes, but again, getting a Ferrari level performance this year, unfortunately. I think that's been, something that's been the Achilles heel for Ferrari as well this year.
I'm gonna quote that: planning for Mercedes but performing like Ferrari. I will quote that going in future. Completely agree with you though. Kimi though, the last
It's
Ferrari
time to
version,
move on to the god.
Kimi Raikkonen, uh,
God.
2 points and ahead of the works Ferrari in an Alfa Romeo, beating his former teammate, which he didn't manage to do in Ferrari itself. Um, Pretty good race from
Sorry,
him.
I'm gonna correct you, Mara. He finished ahead. He finished
He
ahead of
finished ahead
both
of
Ferraris.
Leclerc, both the Ferraris.
He had the penalty.
Ah,
He had a
yes, yes.
penalty. He's God. Do not disrespect the God.
Okay, I will not. Okay, he beat both works Ferraris on track, and what should have been what should have been 4 points is two, but that's not a bad thing for Kimi Raikkonen and Alfa Romeo at all.
First points finish. Very much welcome. Thank you,
Yes,
Mugello.
it's
Thank you, Magnussen.
for a second row running. I think points were on the cards for him in Monza. It was a shame that he got put onto softs instead of, let's say, a better tire. But certainly some redemption in Mugello. Monza is, sorry, Italy is a beloved place of his. He lives very close by and he keeps traveling there. So yeah, glad he could get some points at what is his. Um,
Once the onboards are out, we'll see how much he was actually gaining on the starts, dude. This was not a race of just Sunday drive. He actually performed out of his mind this race to actually be up there.
yeah, it's honestly rare that you see a Kimi Raikkonen putting in that kind of passion of late, but yesterday certainly was up there. What do you think, Yash? Like, could Kimi Raikkonen have done anything better, or perfect race?
I think he did the best that he did. Like again, like you mentioned, finishing ahead of the two Ferraris. At the end of the day, is I think kudos to the entire team and to him specifically. And I think anything that he gets at this point is again his dying last breaths in F1 currently as we speak with his last season. So again, I completely agree that anything that's coming out of Kimi is a bonus at this point. He has a lot to offer to F1 as well. So again, I feel like whatever he gives in, we're seeing a lot of heart from Kimi, and I hope he stays or however many races he has, continues to give that as we go forward.
Yeah.
I have a theory. If you would like to hear me out, I think Kimi is yet to sign the contract for next year. So he's sending it right now. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm not seeing. I wholeheartedly don't want Kimi to leave next year, and I'm probably from the likes of it. He should not be leaving the grid at all because he's literally outperforming the car. So like, yeah, I'm hoping that this form will continue towards the end of the season.
Well, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Giovinazzi. I don't think he should be in Formula One. I'm not saying that he's a terrible driver. I just feel that given some of the other drivers who are not getting a seat, I certainly believe Giovinazzi uh, can be replaced by better options. Very nice guy, but I don't think the skill level is on par with some of the other Formula One drivers. And I think Kimi is probably showing that. And 40-year-old Kimi should not be beating a youngster and what ideally should be the number one driver in the team. Um, it is a merit to Kimi, but I think it's also a demerit to Giovinazzi.
Dude, he's the world destructor champion. Come on, show some respect.
Okay. For those of you
He's
who don't know,
granted 200,000 or $2 million of damage.
that's a big difference, Baba. 200 or 2 million.
I don't remember the chart. It's mostly 200,000.
Yeah, for all of you, those of you
If
who
I'm
do
not
not
wrong.
know, the World Destructor Champion is reserved for that person who costs the team the most most money in terms of car damage. But okay, that takes Giovinazzi takes the crown for that at least. Charles Leclerc, P3 after the, sorry P3
Yeah,
after the
Charles,
start.
let's go.
P3 after the start. It was just heartbreaking to see him get swallowed up by the entire midfield crowd. Ferrari really need to sort their shit out. Do you think there was any, and not to mention the strategy, what were Ferrari thinking? Keeping him on hards for 10 laps and then putting him onto the mediums again. It made absolutely no sense. BlackSheep, I think you had some views on the
I
Ferrari
think
strategy.
he gave the call for that, right?
He said the tires weren't good, but like at some point you need to tell the team to or the team needs to tell you to shut the hell up and drive.
Yeah, because he
Yeah,
chose
one bit-
the hard options. Yes, please, Black Sheep.
One bit I remember was, do you guys remember during the race when, before he pitted, the race engineer was asking, "Oh, which tire do you want to pit on?"
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of us commented as if he's been presented with a menu by the race engineer. I mean, what sort of a team and strategist do you have to be to ask the driver? Just say, "This is what we believe is the best strategy. Come in, change to these tires." So they bring him in, put him onto hards, and then someone changes their mind, and then he's brought back in. It's just a shambles. It's just absolute shambles. And you know what? It's good. It's good that we saw this at Mugello, at Ferrari's home, so that Ferrari fans get the message. Ferrari itself gets the message. I was half even hoping that there was a point when Leclerc was catching up to Vettel. I was half even hoping that they have some sort of contact and it just ends up in disaster for them, so that they somehow get the message that they need to sort their shit out.
I don't think it's any secret that they
I
need to
had a
sort their shit out.
conspiracy hat on.
But Yash, what do you
Did
think?
they pit him? Sorry, I just want to put no. Did they pit Charles just so that he could overtake Vettel
I think they tried
on their home Grand
they
Prix?
pitted Vettel certainly. I think, or they pit Vettel under, or they pit Charles.
No, because they both were on the hard strategy. So both were on hards on the field at one point. So they pit Charles from hards onto mediums, and then he's behind Vettel, and then he has to overtake him again. So something was on the charts that probably Vettel could have caught up to them or something. I don't know. That's just my conspiracy. Don't take me seriously. We can move on.
Yeah, but Yash, do you think
This is
that
most probably
Charles
the low
Leclerc,
IQ of the strategist.
do you think that Charles Leclerc could have had a problem?
I was in for a conspiracy theory of my own.
Which was?
I honestly, with I think the last restart, Leclerc was on third, and I remember again just thinking that, oh my god, could this be like a 1,000th race conspiracy for like a backmarker Ferrari to come up, finish third? It would be like the news would be just completely filled with it tomorrow. But sadly, not the case. That was what I thought would or might end up happening. But yeah, again, I don't even want to feel sad for them. I felt that there was no business for that Ferrari being up there as well. Definitely not the best car on the grid. It was there, I think, because of Leclerc or because of a series of very fortunate events. But again, going back to that conversation, I think they really do need to figure out their strategy. I think that there is something wrong right at the helm. Binotto needs to get things straight, needs to sort out his priorities. If I was Sainz, I'd be shuddering right now. Trying to figure out what I'm actually going to enter into the next year and hoping things get in order. But Leclerc, honestly, P8, I would take it. In this case, P9, in fact, not even a P8, but a P8 end finish, I would still take any day.
Yeah. I do feel he had the potential for P6. I don't know if Lando would have overtaken. Lando did overtake him, so P7 maybe. But I think that's about it. Danny Kvyat. Sorry, I know we are. I'm not sure how all of you are doing on time, but we may have a few people drop off if this extends much longer. So I'm just gonna, in the interest of getting to the top few drivers, let's just skim over the next few. Danny Kvyat. Honestly, lackluster drive. Didn't see much from him. Um, but P7 with the Alpha Tauri, I don't think he'll be too disappointed. Given the, if you look at the cars ahead, I don't see where he could have done any better. Black Sheep, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you seem to be somewhat harsh on Kvyat unnecessarily at times, but I think he did as well as he could have. Right, he out qualified his teammate, had a decent race, and he's been in the same form for the last, I think, 3 or 4 races now. I think Belgium as well. He was in the points, I think.
Yep.
Monza and now Mugello. So yeah,
Yeah, certainly maximize.
We all know the drag is too high on the car because of his balls.
Okay, that's one way to think about it. I apologize, but he certainly maximized the races.
To put some context onto that, wait. To put some context on that, he went wide on Q3, and he told the interviewer that I was trying to go flat. The car couldn't handle my big balls. So that was the context.
I must have missed that.
yeah,
I must have missed that. Lando Norris.
yeah. I saw that interview.
Yeah, Lando Norris at one point, I think, the which I found very stupid. The race engineer came publicly and said we are going for the undercut on Perez. So Racing Point knew exactly what Norris was going to do, and Norris responded with "Yay!" But McLaren didn't respond. Like they didn't react to that. They just said those words and kept Norris out there. What do you think it was mind games, or do you think they actually intended to pit Norris at all? Raju, did you catch that at all?
No, I didn't catch that bit. Again, from a strategy point of view, it did seem a little odd in terms of where they were at. I didn't see too much happening with Lando after a point of time, to be honest. Like, he was in the race, but not there. Like, it's like McLaren had said, okay, we're comfortable with the sixth position. We just want one car to finish at the end of the day. So I think they became really conservative towards the end. And Lando just sat back and just said, hey, good race. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel this was a race of what could have been for Lando, but not a race of what actually happened. So yeah, that's I wouldn't say lackluster, but not a very eventful race for him.
Yep. I think McLaren wouldn't mind a bit of quiet after seeing Sainz, after having the heart and mouth moment with Sainz in the first few laps. Did I miss anything from Norris? Did he have any? I think his overtake on Leclerc was, I think, his most exciting moment of the race. Did I miss anything? Black Sheep?
No, I guess
Baba, you go ahead.
No, I don't think so.
no, I didn't see anything much about Lando. Other than I think they're trying for the undercut, so they wanted to put him on a good in lap, and he actually ended up overtaking him. So I think they scrapped the undercut
Yeah.
on that basis. So yeah, that's the only thing I could think of.
Yep, definitely. After that, Sergio Perez.
Let's move along to Perez.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to him. Was he did seem to have decent amount of pace. But at the same time, he was under pressure from Norris for quite a while, which was a stark contrast to the pace Stroll had. Was it a consequence of purely a consequence of the updated aero parts? Do you think they make that much of a difference on the Racing Point? Um,
I certainly think so. So
well,
I think just to start off, I think Perez for me was one of the best drivers in the race yesterday, because I could clearly see how he kind of fell down, and the gap. I was looking at the gap between him and Lance, and every lap it just kept going down and down and down, and he kept losing positions. But to have finished up in P5 despite all of that, despite um, being told you're leaving the team, the grid penalty, not having the update on the aero parts for the weekend. Despite all of that, he finishes P5. I mean, that has to be a great drive.
He is a great
So
driver.
today, one thing I want to ask: Didn't Perez out qualify Stroll with the old parts?
No,
Yes,
no,
he
no.
did. Yes, he
Stroll
did.
qualified.
We can check
Did he?
that.
Yes, he
Starting
did.
grid
Wait.
was. I'm just opening up the starting
He
grid as
got
we
a grid penalty, but before the grid penalty was applied,
Oh, yes.
he
You
did
might
out
be right,
qualify him.
yeah.
I remember seeing it, dude. He got out qualified him on a poorer car. So yes, he did. He got the grid place penalty that's dropped him down under Stroll, but
Yep.
before that he was P6. So he really was a stellar performance from him. Not much you could have asked for more from a disheartened man and on the back foot. So I guess yeah,
Yeah, it was a
good spirit from him.
Yeah.
116.311
Yep,
from Perez and a
absolutely.
116.356 from Stroll. So yes, a great drive from Perez and as usual, outperforming his teammate. Not I won't say as usual, but certainly being the superior driver on the day. Stroll probably had better race pace due to upgrades. Um, Yash, let's hear your take on Daniel Ricciardo. I know that you do think you do rate him quite highly. Um, do you think that there was any scenario where a podium was possible, or do you think the Red Bull was just way too powerful for the Renault?
I mean, so two factors. Like you have to take into account a Danny Rick in that Renault, and B Albon not being in the highest of his confidence space. Two factors that I actually thought would result in Ricardo standing on that podium and possibly doing another shoey. It's been a while since we've seen one of those. But again, I feel that it was inevitable. To be honest, there's not much that Ricardo could have done. I think there was a point of time when you just let him overtake you, and just to make sure that the grid behind you doesn't close up or bunch up too much, which then risks you dropping down further and further. So I think Renault played it smart. To be honest, they were very realistic about how they were performing as well. And I honestly don't think you can ask more from Ricardo as well currently with that car, which is showing great pace over the weekend. So yeah, I'm happy with the four. I honestly don't realistically think with Albon in that car he could have held on to third place for much longer.
Yeah. Baba, interested to hear your take on the Ricardo versus Albon setup. What do you think? Do you think it was Albon was just too good for Ricardo yesterday?
Interesting. You asked me. Okay, so I would say Albon, is getting some of that British luck being flown over from the Hamilton side with those three restarts. I mean, if things went along as they were going before the Stroll crash, I actually doubt if Albon could have made the two overtakes required to reach to the podium. So, saying that the Red Bull is still the second fastest car on the grid by a mile, not mile I would say, but with a decent margin. So, on the restart, he had enough time to actually take and Ricardo up. He overtake Ricardo and have the podium in the bag. So, I would say well done, but not a hard sweat for him.
He came within. I know it's not a major accomplishment, but about 4 tenths of Max Verstappen in quali, which was good enough to put the car in P4. Which again is what you've been saying is his weakness. He managed to put the car in P4, and let's face it, maximize the result for Red
Yes.
Bull. So yeah,
Yeah, let's not forget that the Red Bull was the fastest car in Sector 3, beating Mercedes, and that says a lot for the package in Mugello which they had. So, yeah, saying that it was a good performance from him, but he did drop positions on every start, barring the last one. So, again, I can't say really.
yeah,
I
certainly
am
a
happy for him. I won't
yeah.
be that jealous hater, but yeah.
It was certainly a mixed performance for Albon, and he's Thai, by the way, not British officially. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
just
but, you know, just like Lewis is Sri Lankan, but no one believes me. Okay.
what? Okay, fine. Let's not go down that path. I think we need a separate podcast on why Baba thinks Lewis is Sri Lankan, but that should be coming soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Valtteri, what was that? But moving on to Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. Uh, it's a story of the season, I think.
What a performance from them. beautiful race.
Halfway through
So
the
hard,
race, I think I
so
remember
difficult
sending
to actually.
halfway through the race. I remember sending the message to the community that I'm honestly just sick of Valtteri Bottas now. He needs to go. There is so many races this season where Hamilton, and let's face it, if it was anyone else in that car, and Black Sheep and I were discussing this earlier, the 2016 Rosberg would have destroyed him this year. The way Hamilton is driving, he's driving nothing exceptional on most tracks. He's slower than Bottas on pure pace. His race pace is nothing great, but at the same time, Bottas is unable to capitalize on shit. Like, you need to be opportunist if you ever want anybody, even yourself, to think of you as a world championship contender. And that's what Bottas has come out saying. I'm Bottas 3.2. I'm going to have my Bottas for breakfast. I'm going to take Hamilton on. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have the balls to actually stand up, or the mental state to compete at the highest level. And for that reason, he needs to go. So Yash, why don't you go? Do you agree
Yeah.
with me? Disagree
Well,
with me?
So I have again from the years that I've seen F1, I always feel like there's been a 1-2. Like you always know who's number one in the team or number two. Like it might not be apparent to them, but to just again the casual viewer, it's very apparent. Like again, my mind goes back to the Schumacher Barrichello era, or again going back to Vettel and Weber, also for that matter. Right? Like you always knew in your head what 1-2 was and who is one and who is two. I feel that Bottas is conceded to that same argument for the fact that he is the number two in the team. And I think that's just playing on his head too much to make it. I think it's a game of man and machine, but he's made it too much a game of the mind currently, which is the reason why he's stuck in second place. I genuinely think that second place is his if he wants it, but I don't think he wants first place badly enough, like you said, Adil. So I agree. Definitely, it's just up to him to understand whether he's okay with being number two or whether he actually wants to get up to number one.
Yeah, and my entire point behind this is that Mercedes are keeping him in that spot because their car is a second and a half faster than any other car on around most tracks. If there was a similar situation to Ferrari 2018 or 17, Bottas would not have retained the seat. Ferrari have basically gifted Bottas an extra year on their contract. I know it's a slightly weird thing to say, but at the same time, I believe if there was a strong championship contender and you had a driver not not capitalizing versus his rivals, um, he would not retain a seat like Mercedes. Formula One is not a forgiving sport. That's why I love it, and he's been given too many
I
second
mean,
chances.
and just going back to, I think a couple of weekends ago when Bottas, I remember, was stuck in traffic, and Hamilton, with I think the penalty as well, went from right up to the end of the grid. I think up to P8 towards the end. I don't think Bottas has I think I wouldn't say capability, but the fire to I think push through the grid when he's stuck in traffic. I think that's it for Bottas. If he didn't have that machine, I don't think he has that gusto or willpower to go and overtake half of the grid and get or earn those points back. So yeah, I think that's something that really differentiates their attitude as well.
So you're saying he doesn't
I'd
have
like
the
to say
drive.
something before.
I yes. um,
Go ahead,
Before
Baba.
we before we make a compounding hate list on Bottas, let's not forget that man had a great start on the race and he did a wonderful safety car restart.
yeah,
He just was on one of those days. This literally is this GP was the entire definition of the Hamilton hashtag blessed and lucky thing, because that man it could if there were no three restarts, I think Bottas had this race in the bag. He did his best in the qualifying. Also, the man was 700ths of Hamilton before his last run, and Ocon impeded that, so he got a yellow flag. So he got lucky there. Then he got lucky during the race, which got three restarts. So we all know that Bottas probably won't be so consistent as Hamilton in terms of performing. So I already knew that when the second start was coming, that Hamilton was just going to get the better of Bottas, because there's Bottas does not have the consistency or that insane starts all the time. So that being said, yeah, you are very much right, Chinoy, that Ferrari literally gifted him the seat, because Mercedes wouldn't have put up with him had the other cars been even close to competitive. So yeah, he should probably go get someone. Give Ricardo that seat, man. Come on, we need to see some action.
I would say any other driver in terms of Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, um, Max, anyone apart from Bottas would probably take it away. But I'm not really going to comment on or go to hypotheticals right now. I think Black Sheep, your take on this very strong opinions from from all of us on Bottas, and does he deserve the seat at Mercedes? Do you think that the Formula One community, not Mercedes, maybe right now they are comfortable 1 and 2 even with a bad performing car, but do you think that from a Formula One fan perspective, Bottas needs to go, or do you think that, or do you agree with Baba on the fact that he has a strong pace and it's just Hamilton's luck and consistency? Yeah, of course. Black Sheep? Uh,
Yes, we don't have Black Sheep right now. Does
I think
so?
he may
You
have
can summarize the GP.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, exciting, extremely exciting, but disappointing at the end of the day. That's my one liner on it. What about you?
True,
Yeah,
true, true.
Baba.
Given the amount of incidents we had, you would think that it would be a Monza show again, but surprisingly, it was just the same disappointment with more DNFs. So, not really much to say. If Ricardo would have a podium, that would be the crowning moment of the weekend. But even that was stolen away from us. Some Thai guy took it.
Okay, okay. Uh, let's save the best for last. Yash, what do you think on the final? On how would you sum up the race in one line?
I mean, in one line. Oh gosh. Okay. Honestly, I think the one line that I would use is I don't remember, because I don't remember what happened at the beginning of the race. It felt like literally a year. I think a lot of them said it as well. It was a race of a lot of forgettables and a lot of memorables, is how I'd put it. So that will be my one line. So yeah, definitely great, and it's a great testament to be back on this track and to try out newer tracks as well. I think teams have gotten very comfortable in racing at the same Grand Prix and the same tracks year after year. It's great to, I think, just turn it up and twist it up a little bit and put them into newer situations. So yeah, I think this is a great first step into that.
Yes, and I think on closing notes, we did sort of have a Monza curse on this race. Every single podium sitter was had a DNF and was directly resultant result or which directly resulted in the safety car coming out, which made the race so much more exciting. So there was a Monza curse in Mugello this weekend. But yeah, I guess this was sort of an interesting race. I certainly enjoyed watching it. I'm just very, very happy all the drivers are safe and no permanent damage done.
Let's just finish with what we started a few weeks ago, Adil, if you don't mind.
Of
I'd
course.
like to ask Yash, who was his driver of the day and who was your not the driver of the day? So the guy who did the most and the guy who probably had the most oatmeal kind of race.
This is interesting. I think the driver of the day for me was Kimi. I know they gave it to Ricardo, but for me, it's Kimi. Considering all of the background on that, I'd actually give it to Kimi and Perez both. I think both of them fought a hard fought race and have earned the points that they got. So definitely kudos to them. Who I think somebody who I think could have done better was, again, I'd say a Bottas. I want to see a little more from him in the next couple of weeks and just put up a fight. I think more than anything else, viewing pleasure is very important. As much as it's again thrilling for us to fight over who gets P5 and P6, it's, I think, top spoils that everybody cares about a lot more. And it's getting a little frustrating seeing a silver arrow, or two of them rather, the same silver arrow, right on the top of the podium. So it'll be good to see that changed up. And he's the only person who can challenge that also, realistically. So yeah, I'd want to see that definitely in the coming few weeks.
Yes.
Oh, who's your DOTD, Adil, and not your DOTD?
I'm gonna give it to. I'm caught between Perez and Albon. But at the same time, probably leaning towards Albon. First podium in the sport, had some really bad luck, but he came back pretty well. Yeah. But not DOTD.
And you're not a driver of the day?
I would say Vettel. Vettel. He was just way too far off the pace. I think Leclerc was
Well,
much quicker than him.
cheap shot, but okay.
I'm talking about the drivers who finished. I'm not talking about the DNFs. I don't want to talk about the DNFs. Just want to talk about the drivers who finished.
Yeah, there's no DNF. We're not including DNFs in that.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, we're
Fiat
not
had a
including DNFs in that.
Fiat maximized
Let's
the result.
Black Sheep.
Sorry, just if I may, Baba. Fiat maximized the result. George Russell
Yep.
did very, very well. Kimi certainly did well. Norris had a stable race. The only person who was unstable in terms of pace throughout the session was Sebastian Vettel. So I have to give it to him, unfortunately.
Yeah, but their car is not at all competitive. They are not finishing in points. So I would say it was still decent work from him. And let me just summarize by saying by my DOTD and not DOTD. I would definitely agree with Yash that Kimi is my driver of the day because that car is a rickshaw in all sense. And to finish it at P8, P7, P8, I think, before the penalties kicked in, was a marvelous achievement from him given his age and how it's literally a hobby for him. So he literally schooled the grid there. And for me, the driver of the day is I would give it to Norris because with his package and which position he was in, I was expecting a bit more from him, but he just was sort of here or there, just somewhere in the middle. Everyone else on the grid actually got an inch more from what they were actually expected to do. So I would give my not driver of the day to Norris. Let's ask Black Sheep if he's with us right now, what he thinks of this before we conclude. I'm taking that as a no. So, Chinoy, why don't you summarize it?
Yep. So in a nutshell, a race of heartbreaks, a race of sad performances, a race of redemption, and a race of carnage. I think we can't leave carnage out of the equation. But it was a race that had pretty
Absolutely.
much everything: overtaking, carnage, disappointment, strategy, a shitty Ferrari strategy as usual, mistakes by drivers, inconsistency. It had pretty much everything you'd expect from an Italian Grand Prix. Or Tuscan Grand Prix. So it was enjoyable to watch
It
at the
was
end of the
definitely a red weekend.
day. Definitely a red weekend, you said?
Yeah, but it's a Ferrari red weekend and also two red flags. So definitely a red weekend.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you all for joining in, and a special thank you to Yash. It was great having you to speak with. I don't think we catch up enough normally, but at least we catch up when it comes to Formula One, which is way more important.
Absolutely.
Uh, right. So thank you, Baba.G.
Which
as
is
well.
great. Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing and thank you so much.
Anytime. Hopefully, we can have you for future podcasts and future race reviews. Thank you, Richie. Thank you, Black Sheep.
Yeah, I would love to hear from you more, Yash. Next time, please do join us again. It was a good talk, bro.
Absolutely. I'm free on Mondays, so you can expect me back soon.
Yes,
Yeah, I
we'll
hope to
send
see you soon again, man.
Yes. Thank you.